Hello. Hi. Welcome to my experiment. Spirit prompted me this evening to just push past some comfort zones. I've actually spent the past year plus really working through this particular area wherein I'm not entirely comfortable, which is on camera. So thank you for joining me. I am Brooke Grove, for those of you who don't know me, and it's been a pleasure to hold space and share and communicate with many of you in the NDE Facebook group. So I thought tonight I'd just come on and see if anyone's out there that has any questions. Before I get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a backstory as to how I ended up doing this here and now. If you're interested solely in my NDE story, you may search Brooke Grove NDE on YouTube, and there are plenty of videos where you could hear the extended version of the story. Also, tomorrow I will be speaking at the Williamsburg IANDS chapter. If you'd like to join that, there's an email in the notes section that you can get on the Zoom list for. So that would give you more insight into my NDE specifically. But you guys always pose so many questions on the group, and quite often I'm so busy working and with my children that I don't have the time to respond. So since I needed to begin setting up equipment tonight for tomorrow morning, as it's Eastern Standard Time and I'm on Pacific Standard, I thought, why not just go online? Like, Spirit keeps prompting me to just keep pushing through this fear. And, the only way through something is to really do it. And so that's what I've been doing. And I don't like edited videos. I don't enjoy being given a lot of prompts. I don't like when I go on interviews and they cut and edit and filter and make everything look pretty. I like things authentic. I like them raw. I like them natural. And so that's what you get with me. Love it or leave it. So I'm in my yoga clothes. I'm in my home, just, hanging out, getting ready for a big day tomorrow that I'm excited about. It's actually a big week. I'll also be doing World NDE Week with some of our fellow NDEers, and that's a big event. It's 7 days long, and it's got Deepak and Marianne Williamson and a whole bunch of folks. You can check out the website. I will be speaking on Friday, the 25th, in the NDE and Oneness panel. So you can find me there as well, and that's a free event for everyone, so would love to see you there. So again, tonight is really just about me acknowledging consciously and out loud, allowing the vibrations of the words to be given out to the internet in full integrity and honesty. I have been so busy, truly busy, that I have delayed this channel. But behind that busyness, there's a shadow element wherein I have had this fear of being seen. I've had this fear of putting it all out there, which now that I look back is astonishing, because just a year ago, my friend Trisha Barker invited me to be in her near-death summit, and I didn't want to do it if it meant I had to go on YouTube and do other interviews. I was comfortable going live for the summit, as I had been speaking at some conferences and events, but I wasn't comfortable with YouTube and having it out there, through all time and space indefinitely. And she really encouraged me to push through that and do an interview with her, and then an interview with my dear friend Sylvia. And it's just really snowballed from there. And what's fascinating is I get this nervous trepidation every single time that I'm about to go on. And yet every time there's audience engagement, or there's a good host who speaks from the heart and allows me to respond naturally and nothing is scripted, I absolutely love it. If you would have told me that last July, I would have laughed. okay? But literally, I was the preview from Trisha and I's talk. I'm one of the pre-recorded speakers this year, and so that's in the paid section of her summit. But just the preview from that, the response that I've gotten from my clients, from strangers, it's on Instagram if you want to check it out, on Trisha Barker NDE's account. The response that I've gotten from that, direct messages, just for a 7-minute preview, have been phenomenal. And it's just been so heartwarming because I realized the only thing that's been getting in my way is me. So I have to acknowledge that. And I want to model that for so many of you, because I know many of you have goals and aspirations of different levels and, different intentions aligned with your gifts and with your offerings and your services to the community. So it's really important to me to show up with integrity and to be honest and to be myself and no pretense. So that's what you're getting tonight. And I welcome any questions. The only one that I'm not going to spend a ton of time on, respectfully, is the details of my NDE, because there are so many videos on that. If you check my previous lives, I have a recording from the day that I went into coma, which caused my NDE, and the day I woke up from coma, and descriptions of that, as well as the countless other videos I've mentioned from this past year. So yes, in a year, I have really birthed something new for me. I've been working on my book for some time, and that's really my passion project. But this has allowed me to communicate with the community, and that's really informed so much of where the book's going. A little bit of background very quickly for those of you that don't know me. I was a clinical psychologist, a PhD candidate in clinical psychology prior to my near-death experience. And when I woke up, my after effects came on so strong that they challenged everything that I thought I knew about this realm and this existence. I was very analytical, I was agnostic, and I didn't believe really in the unseen. And suddenly I was able to see everything I didn't believe in, whether it was angels, whether they were persons actually leaving the body, so the ghost body or the soul body going up into the light in ICU, because the walls are all glass, so I would see that. I had medical intuition come on full blast. I could just, I was always an empath, but to the level that I got turned up to was ineffable. It still is. It's very hard to put into words. And so I had a really treacherous, 7.5 years of reintegration, because I wanted to be that Brooke that existed prior to the coma. I wanted to continue on this path that I invested so much time in. I had already gotten my MAs and gotten licensed as a therapist, and was really excited to be a clinical psychologist. And then suddenly, everything I knew about clinical psychology would pathologize who I was becoming. And I didn't feel safe going to someone trained like myself to disclose what I was going through. And so I walked away from clinical psychology for a period and took a leave of absence. And I went and explored other paths, whether they were temples or ashrams or different types of meditation. I then studied transpersonal psychology. Through learning how to embody my own work, I began working deeply with shamans of many different paths. And it was really the shamanic, the earth medicine, that in many ways saved me, because I was having such a hard time being embodied with my gifts. I was always shooting out, going through the crown chakra, having out-of-body experiences, very dissociated. Now, a huge part of that, again, without going into terrible detail, is that I am a polytrauma survivor. So prior to my NDE, I had been dissociating for already a decade and a half, if not more. So then suddenly these gifts come on, and I'm so open in my upper chakras that I'm just like, anytime I want to go out. I didn't understand yet how to really keep the light body in alignment with the physical body. And so it was a long path and a lot of ebbs and flows. It was a labyrinth. I went back to clinical psychology multiple times after achieving spontaneous remission from the diseases that put me in a coma. And yet every time I went back to clinical psychology, I got sick again. And so I started to understand that spirit was communicating to me through my body, and that I could use the skill sets I had achieved as a clinician and the knowledge I had attained, and I could create something with it. But what was that something? I had no idea. So I really started, attending anything I could that was in the transpersonal, the mystical, IANs, anything to do with what other persons were experiencing like me. And slowly but surely, I built up the courage to start talking about my experience. And when I did that, spirit just opened one door after another. And it's since I really dedicated myself to that and to trusting spirit, it has been approximately 3 years. And I mean, things have just shifted so rapidly. And so I'm grateful to any of you who chose to show up tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I did, right before I came on, I pulled a few cards and I asked Spirit, what is this for? Like, what was the calling? What prompted me to come on today? And what may I offer others? And we got this wonderful collective card, which is, if you can see it, it says protection. And this card is all about like you being in the center of a collective, and that collective is in service and it's all going outward. So what a beautiful card to receive for our community and for us being together tonight, whatever numbers we are. And I love intimate groups, so the smaller the better. And then I said, okay, Spirit, so from this protection, what are we cultivating? And again, they gave us the most lovely answer, which is friendship. And I feel like, and this is just me, I'm speaking for myself here, guys. So sometimes when I go into the NDE group on Facebook, it's a little bit hard because there's a lot of, it's this way or it's that way. It was this way for me and it's that way for you. It's all in the gray, okay? It all exists in the gray. We all have our individual experiences, our NDEs, our mystical experiences, our spiritually transformative experiences. They're all so different. And yet we're all allies. We're in this together. There's more than enough room at the table for us all. So there's no need for divisiveness. There's no need for saying, this is the way, this is not the way. No, most of us that have arrived here because we were indoctrinated with belief systems wherein we were told black or white, my way or no way kind of thinking. And that works for some, and that's great if it works for you, but it doesn't work for a lot of us who are natural born outliers. And so tonight we are calling in protection as a group, and we are calling in friendship. So with that, I'm going to begin looking at the chat, and I am going to get my glasses because I'm on my laptop and the type is tiny, but let's see who's here. Hi, Colleen. Hello. Hey, Rob. Nice to see you too. Martingale. Hey. Hi, guys. So I'm so grateful that you showed up in my totally impromptu decision to come on live and just talk a bit with you guys. So there's always so many questions about NDEs or just mystical experiences in general. So feel free to put anything out there. I am just but one experiencer. I will offer you my humble 2 cents, but I can only speak my truth for myself, okay? But with that, I look forward to answering you guys. Okay, so Colleen says, I feel like the folks I work with are my circle of protection. We have so much fun today and have built a nice group of friends. So it's pretty cool that you chose those two cards. Well, thank you, Colleen. But I do believe that it was Spirit that chose those. They work through me and through all of us healers. But yes, they feel very divinely aligned. So thank you so much for sharing that. And with that, I open up to any questions you guys want to ask, or I can just randomly chat about all sorts of things mystical, transpersonal, and near-death related. You know what I love too? I'm a writer. For some of you know me that are here. But I love to just be given a word or an emotion or something and kind of flow with that. So if there's anything within the mystical realm or the transpersonal, and you just want to give me a word or 3 words and let me flow from there, I'm happy to do it. So again, this is really an experiment, guys. So let's have fun with it. Anything? Anybody? Let me think of the first one that comes to me. Are you guys familiar with spiritual bypassing? Yes, Rob, I can speak about that. Okay, we will get back to spiritual bypassing because it's a big one. Rob asked about connecting with our teams. So this is something that's very personal. Excuse me, I want to sit in lotus. I just feel more grounded that way. So connecting with our teams. This is so highly individual. Teams tend to connect with you in a way in which you will understand and not push away. So initially, if you're hesitant to it, or if you are expecting like these big revelations, it may not be the way they initially communicate. They might be speaking through synchronicities and waiting for you to start looking and observing, and then realizing that these are far more than synchronicities. So calling in teams is what I find to be most important, because again, you always have to ask for their assistance, and they love when you ask, by the way. That said, for me, the vernacular that I was taught and that I choose to embody, because it repels false light. Now, what do I mean by false light? False light are energies or entities or beings or earthly beings that have chosen not to go into the light, that are not of the highest and best. And quite often they have a trickster energy about them, and they will often masquerade as being a guide or someone on your team just to siphon energy and have your attention and really, get you working with them. However, true light cannot lie to you. If you ask a question to it, they're very direct, yes or no. They cannot manipulate you, and they feel good. There's never any doubt. When you're in connection with true guides, you know it, because it's like you're just being cradled in this divine loving energy. And so for me, it's very simple, whether I'm opening the 4 directions for ceremony, or I'm praying, or I'm meditating, but I'm always calling in my teams of the highest light and resonance. It's that simple. Now, why I do that is because when I say teams, I'm accounting for everyone. That is my angelics, the archangels, my spirit animals, my beloveds, my ancestors in the light, and on and on and on and on. You can keep going, whether it's plant, medicine, whether you believe in, different parts of the elementals or anything like that. You're calling all of that in, but only that which services the light. And the more you practice that vernacular and then go directly into ritual, like immediately into meditation or to whatever kind of ceremony you may practice, the more you'll start to feel that they come on. Like you'll feel the energy around you actually shift when you call them in. I do the same thing before bed at night. I literally say, I call upon my teams of the highest light and resonance, and I release any energies that are not mine and call back my power. And that's just to kind of release and cut cords with anything that I might have picked up throughout the day, any parasitic emotional stuff that comes off of other people, anything that might be ruminating in my mind before I go to sleep. So that really helps in that way with the guides. Now, if you really want to meet your guides and you're struggling with that, shamanic journeying can be a really great way because the rhythm of the drums, and there's sources that I can put in the note section of this talk afterwards. There's sources that are pre-recorded, and you can listen to them, and they will allow you to drop into a theta state where you're more able to receive information, and you're going to go in with one simple goal. I want to meet my guides. And you're likely only going to meet one in the beginning, but you might get lucky. You might meet more. So, and the more you practice this, the more that you get used to the technique and journeying, the more you'll be able to pick up information. And if journeying is of interest to you, when I do start doing weekly lives, which I intend to do after conference season is over in early to mid-September, I will be showing, I'm actually going to be doing videos where I'm demonstrating a lot of these techniques and showing how to go in, because I know it's easier for a lot of people to experientially learn than to just listen. And a lot of us are kinesthetic too. You can see I'm always using my hands. That's part of the energy medicine as well. But that said, guide work is, there's very many ways to go about it, but calling them in, making sure it's true light you're working with, doing it before a ritual, taking time before you even drop into the meditation or to the ceremony, but to really feel their presence, to feel the way your vibration shifts is huge, because it's like muscle memory. The more you do it, the more you're going to become cognizant of, oh, this is expanding, this is expanding, this is expanding. Oh, this is how I feel when I'm held in this divine container. It's very different than when I'm in the mental body, or if I'm stuck kind of torn between the emotional and the mental body. You're going to feel that crown chakra activation, and hopefully the soul star as well. And it all really comes in and out. It's a Jupiter-like energy, expansiveness. So I hope that gives you a little insight, Rob. I could talk about guides for a really long time, but that will be definitely one of the subjects we tackle on our live talks. So thank you for that question. Hi, Martingale. Congratulations on your new job. And I hope that you are enjoying your new town, your new home as well. That's amazing. Congratulations to you. Colleen asks, what is transpersonal? Great question. See, you can catch me. I'll fall into clinical jargon every once in a while, so call me out on that. Transpersonal is a term that was coined in the 70s when a group of psychologists studying at Stanford decided to pull away from traditional psychology. And what they were interested in is traditional psychology looks at the bell curve, but what they're looking for is psychopathology. So everything exists on one side of the spectrum of human existence, and that's disease. They're looking for what's abnormal, whether it's a personality disorder, whether it's depression, whether it's psychosis. So that's traditional clinical psychology. They're looking for pathology. These psychologists became interested in peak experiences. What happens when we go beyond what we are capable of as humans and go above and out and about and all around? And so it began initially with a lot of pioneers in psychedelic research that were really into expanding their consciousness through that. They soon discovered that psychedelics were absolutely not necessary, and that they could reach these transpersonal states through meditation, through yoga, through breath work. That's where holotropic breath work from my former teacher Stan Groff comes from. It was a chance to induce a transpersonal state without drugs. So transpersonal is all about the peak experience. For those of you that have had a spiritually transformative experience, a mystical experience of any type, a shared death experience, or you've just came into that infinite ocean of bliss during meditation, and you have been able to really connect outside yourself to everything else, that itself is a transpersonal experience. There's many types. Giving birth can be a transpersonal experience. Being in the right divine alignment with partnership can be a transpersonal experience. The joys of creativity, for sure, are transpersonal experiences when you're very deep in them. So I hope that brings some clarity. And if you need more, just ask. Thank you, Colleen. Oh, Yvonne, thank you. I have not actually, excuse me one moment with the water. I drink a ton of water because of all the vibrational medicine I do. That said, I have not personally recorded meditation guided meditations or tracks or anything of that nature. I do instruct my clients through them in sessions, but I haven't actually done any on my own. I guess that would be pushing through another fear. I am somebody who, as I do the energy work, and part of why I practice shamanic energy medicine is that it's very grounding for me. My gifts are so up here and amplified that when I do a lot of work, I tend to go up and up and up and up and up, and I've got to bring my energy back down. So I guess that why I've never felt called to doing meditation guide work is that I feel like my energy is a bit high for it. But that said, I do know that that has a very medicinal effect for people struggling with depression and some lower vibrational states. So it's definitely food for thought, and I appreciate that, Yvonne. Thank you so much. You're welcome, Rob. Thank you. So Martingale asks, what are the vibrations followed by deep clarity that we experience during and after deep meditation? Well, that very much varies person to person. You are definitely in a transpersonal state if you've been able to really go deep into the meditation. The vibrations that you feel afterwards, it could be a multitude of things. You can be connecting with your guides here right in that moment, and you're feeling their energy in your field because very much your energy shifts when they are actually in your auric field, which, by the way, is much bigger than most people think, especially when we start talking about something like the etheric chakras, which start here at the soul star and go all the way up, 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 up until they hit source and you're reunified and returned back to your original state, which is this fractal of, we are fractals of source. So those vibrations can vary. Part of that really relaxed, loving ocean of bliss that many people describe, that's being really deep in the theta. Theta is where we're really able to shift things. It's where we're able to kind of tap into miracle consciousness, and we're able to connect to the creator of all that is and change things. It's where we can release limiting programmings, limiting beliefs. Really, manifestation is far more possible from that state. So theta is often a vibration that people are talking about when they describe that. Also, it can be the vibration of simply coming back into the human. If you have been in your upper chakras and you're someone who kind of pulls away from the physical as you meditate, as I often have done in the past, when you're anchoring back in, you'll feel the shift as you're coming back into embodiment. So that's a potential too. There's so many different avenues. It's really highly personal, just like with the gifts. It's a matter of how you experience it. And that's why I always encourage everyone, if they can, if you're investigating these states for yourself, trust yourself, not what you've read, not what I say, not what someone else says. Get a journal And you don't have to, write forever, but just make notes after a meditation of what really resonates, or what was different, or how did that feel, or what was the quality of this, or free write for a bit afterwards. And so when I was getting trained as a meditation teacher, which is something I also did do, that was part of what we had to do for the entirety of the program that we were in. We kept a journal on our meditative experiences. And some of the things that you would forget actually ended up being pivotal. So I highly encourage you to keep a meditation journal, whether it's art's great, or words, it doesn't matter. And it can be just little like notes. It doesn't have to be in depth, but it gives you an access point to pivot back to once you start having more transcendent experiences, and you can say, hey, this relates to this and this relates to that, or where did that come from? Look at everything with a sense of compassionate inquiry, and you can never go wrong. Take what resonates from any experience and leave the rest. If you ask Spirit for clarification, they will give it to you in time, in accordance to your own divine timeline. Thank you for that question. Okay. Now I know what you're talking about, Martingale. Exactly. So Martingale mentions that he hit a vibrational state. He or she, I'm not sure, I don't want to assume from the name, hit a vibrational stage and heard a rushing sound in the ears. And they've eventually snapped out of it and looked out the window and had a hyper focus into the geometry, like the sacred geometry and mathematics of things outside. Beautiful. It sounds like what happened during your beautiful meditation there is that you were indeed taking in some light codes. The light codes are coming in very, very, very quickly from our galactic guides and from the cosmos. And that's part of the ascension process that's currently going on. And one of the most common symptoms people report when they hit an ascension point during their meditation is ringing in the ears. And sometimes it only lasts during the meditation. Sometimes it can last for days, just like this ringing and ringing and ringing. And that is an actual type of ascension symptom. Now, what's fascinating is that it gave you that hyper focus to look where you needed and to see what you needed to see in that moment, which was the poetry of sacred geometry, which was right outside your window. Not only that, it surrounds us in everything. I mean, sacred geometry makes up this world. So how beautiful is it that Spirit brought you back in with this sonic awareness and yet a visual awareness of this mathematics that literally defines all of us. It's within all of us. And that's poetic, that's lovely. And that, my friends, is a transpersonal experience. So yeah, I do want to mention spiritual bypassing. You guys throw some more questions out there. I'm going to get on them. So spiritual bypassing is something near and dear to my heart that those of you who follow me on Instagram, if you wish, I've recently created a private account. It's at Brooke with an E, Grove Healing on Instagram. It's consciously private as I want to make sure that the person's coming in are energies that match the group dynamic. The majority of people there are clients or people who interact with me on YouTube. And so it's a very small cohort, consciously small. And I share a lot of my writings and whatnot there. And since I've started doing that, in the past, I've spoken and I've shared research and I've been in a lot of interviews. That's how the NDE community knows me from the past year where I came out of my mother turtle's shell of protection and boundaries. That said, my writing, I tend to really dive deep into spiritual narcissism and spiritual bypassing. Now, I'm sure many of you are familiar with those terms. Spiritual bypassing also actually comes from the transpersonal community, but it's where someone is really wearing the let's call it makeup or the clothes and talking the good talk, but they're not walking an aligned walk. And so it's sadly what we've seen with so many of the gurus who have fallen as of late and throughout history, where, you know, they create this wonderful modality, or they bring it to the populace. For example, a famous example is Kundalini Yoga, and yet at the same time, they are participating in egregious acts of sexual abuse. So that's spiritual bypassing. To talk about something and then to live your life in private in a completely different way is spiritual bypassing. The narcissism comes more from a wound. A lot of people mistakenly think that narcissism is, you know, really loving yourself and having an inflated ego. It is quite the opposite. It's coming from a very, very deep wound of wanting to be held, of wanting to be acknowledged, of wanting to be loved, of wanting to be seen. And so there's a lot of that where it's grandiosity that comes off on the spiritual front, and a lot of big talk and look at me, but in reality there's this core wound that they're not meeting themselves. And so anytime you're trying to fill a wound outside of yourself, you're going to have trouble. Because the reality is, and I've said this, and those of you that are familiar with me are probably tired of hearing me say this, but I say it and I will always say it. All true, authentic, lasting healing is a form of self-healing. You may come to a person like myself, you may go to many other types of guides and healers, but if they walk in integrity, if they walk in beauty to the light that they bring in this world, then their goal ought to be to empower you to do the work, because you have the capacity to do it. We've been indoctrinated in this culture, particularly with allopathy and Western medicine, and I'm not saying that these are bad things. There's a time and a place for everything. Again, room at the table for all. That said, we've been indoctrinated to believe that we give our power to someone else and they fix it. That's not how it works with these deep core wounds. If you're bringing in wounds from early childhood trauma, if you're coming in with ancestral trauma, multi-generational trauma, et cetera, and it's just been passed down the bloodline, you haven't had, you know, the correct emotional experience to nullify those wounds. Therefore, you will seek out situations, people, and circumstances that allow you to feel as if you're healing them. But the reality is you're just projecting them back out there, because you have to sit with yourself. You have to go into the mode of authentic healing. And the thing about authentic healing is it's not pretty. Nobody loves to talk about the reality of genuine healing. Genuine healing without the use of the traditional modalities, meaning without psychotropics, without, you know, the assistance of a large group of persons. If you're just going in on your own and doing deep shadow work or deep inner child healing, or even in therapy in a safe container, if the therapist is good and they're giving you the space to do what you need to do, and they're not rescuing and enabling and all these other things that helpers tend to do when they also are uncomfortable with their wounds, because you remember that a large majority of persons practicing healing arts are wounded healers, and many of them are not cognizant that they are unaligned in their own archetypal being as a wounded healer. And so first and foremost, your healer needs to be doing their job. They need to be honest and they need to be doing their work. And so going into these dark, messy places, it's scary. It is. But I've been talking to so many clients, just I'd say since the last two eclipses, there's been massive purges. Any of my clients that tune into this later can attest to this. There's been massive purges. People feel very sick. Like they feel great when they receive the energy medicine and we integrate it with the psychology. They feel great during the session. And then a few days later, they're hit with this massive purge. And I gently am asking them not to get in its way, to allow it to come out. Because remember, this stuff has to come out. Otherwise, we're holding it in. And not just to the physical body. The physical body is usually the last to manifest. It is the one that disease comes through at the end. So if you're having physical symptoms, it's already penetrated your etheric, your spiritual, your mental, your emotional, and now your physical field. That's why quite often, more than not, even mental illness, if you want to call it that, more often than not, it's easier to deal with these things than it is when mental illness turns into physical illness, because at that point we're talking about comorbidity, which is when two are co-occurring at the same time. So that's just really some just important stuff. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but again, I'm always speaking from the heart. I'm answering you directly, and I'm just kind of going with what's coming to me through spirit as I hear their word choices that differ from my own. So sometimes I correct myself and I lose my train of thought because they are quite talkative and they like you guys and are so grateful you showed up tonight. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Hey, Ned! Yay, Ned's here. Big round of applause for Ned. Ned, thank you for everything that you do for our group. I honestly, hats off to you. I'm like every day when I see you in action on that group, I am just awestruck. You are an amazing person, sincerely. I know you in the flesh as well, and you've been super supportive. You came out and you supported me during one of my first big NDE talks when I was so nervous before I even went on camera. So thank you, Ned, so much. And you have a beautiful soul, and we are so lucky to have you monitoring our group and just being willing to spend so much time with the community and dedicating yourself. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I really, really appreciate you being here. So Martingale says, I don't believe in any religion. Was my experience related to an afterlife or something that only exists in temporal reality? Well, to me, they're all interconnected. For someone that can see beyond the veil, the idea, and again, I'm with you, I'm not religious, although I did grow up religious, so I'm very familiar with many ways of religious ideology. That said, the way that religion tends to describe it in many different paths is kind of like there's there and there's here. In reality, it's all co-occurring. And this is why I love what I get to do with quantum fieldwork and the shamanic medicine. The veil is here. You can see right through it here and now all the time. If you choose to, if you open your third eye, and if you really do the practices that allow that to expand. Now, I'm not saying everyone's going to see auras like I do or have shared death experiences or see people leaving their light bodies. It's different varying degrees for everybody. But the veil is always here. It's always accessible. It's most thin, as most people know, in the middle of the night around 3:30 during major lunar events, eclipses, full moons, new moons, things of that nature, just because we're at greatest contact with spirit. Much of what occurs on the earth is directly related to the heavens or the cosmos. So, you ask, was this temporal or is it to do with the afterlife? I'd say both, quite frankly. The afterlife is accessible to us now. Once you really open to the knowledge that you are part of Source and Source loves you unconditionally, you can tap into that divine love through your practices anytime, anywhere, any place, and you'll feel it. And that is a temporal experience because our human body can only calibrate so much light. So when the soul star or any of the etheric chakras are open, and that is often what people are feeling, and they just don't have the vernacular for it. When that is open and you're feeling this divine remembrance and you're in this peak transpersonal state, then you might feel like you had a taste of the afterlife. And in fact, you did, because what I often tell persons is that the soul star itself, this is where we go to in between incarnations. It's where our karma is held. It's where a lot of our past life information is held. And also for near-death experiencers, if we had connected through all of the etheric chakras, we would have become one with Source. So we didn't make it all the way through the etheric chakras, or I wouldn't be here having this conversation with you. So that was a taste of the afterlife coming through the chakra system. The earth has chakras as well, and etheric chakras as well. And so sometimes when you're in full alignment through meditation or prayer, or any type of embodied practice, be it ecstatic dance, qigong, yoga, it doesn't matter. But when you're in that full aligned state, you get this temporal bliss experience, but it is very much what being held in the afterlife feels like. That divine union, that feeling of unconditional love, and that knowledge that everything is okay. You are okay, and you are loved unconditionally at all times, no matter what, by your creator. I believe that's an experience we can all have in the human. I do believe that many, many souls would love to come and be embodied here and now because of the shifts that are occurring. So it's a great gift to be present now and to be investigating as you are these experiences and practice. And that's really like with anything, practice makes perfect. You might have to try many different toolboxes. I always say I'm gathering new skill sets to put in my medicine bag constantly because I never know who I'm going to encounter and what do they need. And so I'm constantly rotating, whether it's something that's more psychology dominated or whether it's psychology fused with the vibrational medicine, or whether I'm going more into theta healing, or whether, you know, it's a fusion of all of the above, or whether spirit's just like, nope, we're doing it my way this time, and I just follow their lead. So it's all different. And yeah, it's temporal while you're a human, yet once we leave this state of embodiment, that is what we are and what we know. So it's kind of a yes and a no, but I do believe you can pull that in at any time, any place, anywhere, as long as you consciously call it in. But again, practice, 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 practice. And remember, asking for assistance. And I do behoove you, as I did earlier in this conversation, to always say, I'm calling in my teams of the highest light and resonance, so that nothing artificial, nothing that's maybe earthbound, not crossed over, none of the parasitic debris that's all over the place with what's been going on the past year and a half with the collective, none of that can come in. Only the highest vibration of light. And you will come to know the difference if you do the practices. Thank you for that question. Colleen, you asked, how would you allow it to come out and what would it look like? Could you clarify what you mean by it? Because I get so into what I'm talking about at the moment that I'm like, which it are we talking about? So it to come out, what would it look like? Just clarify what the it is, and I got you, girl. Thank you, Ned. So while I wait for Colleen to clarify, Rob asked, if we ask for guidance from Source or our team, is it safe to try to do shadow work on our own, or should we seek out the help of a healer? Okay, so with shadow work, it depends on the circumstance. We're always doing shadow work. Okay, if you're a human and you're living right now, you're being called to do shadow work pretty much all of the time because there's so much that we all need to clear. Okay, minor shadow work, I believe that we're all capable of doing on our own. And that's just really looking at the parts of ourselves that we've repressed or we've denied. And you can journal about that. You can literally have a conversation with that aspect of yourself. That's Apollo. He's saying hi to you guys. He loves to come on YouTube. I have no idea why. He never does this unless the camera's on. That said, you can, ask for that assistance and then do some basic level shadow work. But if you have a history like myself of complex trauma, or there's multi-generational trauma in the family, or there's suppressed memories that scare you, and I mean literally scare you, I would highly recommend working with a trained professional. Depth psychology is something that I studied for 13 years, and there are many, many wonderful techniques And it's important to have someone that can hold space for you in a safe container and make sure that when you release it, you know how to go back home and be integrated. I think a lot of the reasons people run from shadow work is that when it comes up, it often feels like Pandora's box. And so a lot of information comes flooding out and they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to hold it. They don't have the support system for that. But the reality is that if you create a container for it, if you create a time and a space, if you have someone hold space with you, especially in the beginning, then you're able to shut that box at will. And it doesn't mean that you're cutting off from that work. It's just this, you're setting spiritual boundaries. This is not the time and the place. I need to feed my kids right now, or I need to get to work right now. Therefore, you're shutting that box. But with time, the beautiful thing is the more you revisit this box that felt like a curse, then it becomes a gift. And that's when the transmutation occurs and the shadow becomes what I like to borrow from Elena Fairchild's vernacular, and it becomes Pandora's gift, because it's everything that you chose not to want to see about yourself, and yet it's the things that make you exceptional or unique. For example, and I say this with complete humility, please trust. I was convinced when I left clinical psychology that I would be called a quack by my cohorts for going into the spiritual. And I was also convinced that when I told my story, you know, the medical doctors and persons of that nature would just kind of laugh it off, and that my after effects would be like frowned upon, laughed about, you know, jokes made. And I also believed that I was an articulate academic speaker, because I was at the time. I was speaking a lot at conferences and things on trauma and, ironically, the wounded healer archetype. But I didn't have the confidence to get out of that academic role and be fully myself. When you're an academic, it's very easy to put a facade on and to speak the language and use the knowledge and create kind of a buffer between you and the audience. And there is a dichotomy where they see you as the expert and they treat you with just a different vibration. And so when I started sharing the personal and using the personal not only to share it, but to also embody it in my work and be the platform for how I began my healing practice, which is now international, I didn't expect to be sharing so openly my raw self. I didn't think I'd show up on YouTube unexpected on a Friday night in my yoga clothes, you know, and just randomly chat about things and have people take it seriously, because my shadow was telling me I wasn't worthy of sharing this information, that I didn't know enough, that, you know, I needed to go get certifications and do all the things I had done as an academic, because those things brought validation from the populace. And that, you know, I thought, oh, the only people that are going to listen to me are going to be people in this certain community. What's fascinating is, since I gave I gave away the illusion of control and just started walking through the doors that spirit was opening for me. And I was scared. I was scared. I started this talk acknowledging how scared I was. I got scared a few moments before I came on here. I always get scared before I come on. And then I'm just like, okay, fear, let's go. Like, you can accompany me, but you're not going to run the show. You can be in the room, but every time I allow the fear to come with me and I push through it a little bit more and a little bit more, I take away its power and I embody my own. And now I can really say that, you know, although I'm still learning how to be present on camera and how to facilitate these conversations and how to be both myself and also kind of fluctuate in and out of, you know, the trained clinician and then the vibrational healer, I find power in that. And my shadow loses some aspects of it, but it doesn't lose it entirely. It's transmuting it. It's alchemizing it. I'm now realizing, like, lovingly and humbly, that so many of my clients are medical doctors and psychologists. And it's fascinating because they were the ones I thought would really tear apart my work. And yet now they're the ones that are working on the front lines and have been just having such a, rough year. And yet they're coming to me to provide a service that's outside their training, that's outside of what they knew and how we were trained. We weren't trained energetic boundaries or things of that nature when we were studying clinical. So it's been so humbling and so fascinating to do that type of shadow work. And I have been doing that on my own. However, I have also have a lot of training in shadow work and spent 13 years facilitating it. So I'm comfortable doing that. I'm also comfortable sharing it with you. For those of you that do follow me on Instagram, you'll see that a lot of my writing talks about the shadow. I do believe that one of the biggest spiritual bypassing epidemics we have in not the NDE community specifically, but the spiritual communities in general, is that it's love and light. It's love and light. It's love and light. Love and light. It's not love and light all the time, guys. Welcome to humanity. Love and light is the goal. It is where we are ascending. It is where we want to get with unity consciousness. But it is not where we are currently at. So without what many of my friends that are healers and I that specialize in shadow work, without what we call endarkment, you can't truly get to love and light. You have to own the darkness within. We all have it. Until you return to source, until you are purified, until you are nullified by that divine light, you are still a human, and a human has a shadow. And that shadow is always shape-shifting, and it is there to teach you. It is not something to get angry about or embarrassed about. It's not something to suppress. I mean, what I'm doing with you right now, in a sense, is a form of shadow work, because I get anxiety coming on camera, and yet I do now feel that my calling is to really speak my truth and speak it as honest and candidly and vulnerably, without any pretense, without any mask, without any filter between us, without me being the expert and you coming to me in that way. No, we're equals. That's the way that I see it. We're equals, and we all have knowledge to impart and share together. And so that's where I'm coming from. But my shadow fights me on it. I mean, I honestly was like, part of me and my friends, if any of my NDE friends are watching this, they're going to laugh because they've already heard this. I'll have phone conversations with friends where I'm like, well, ego says and spirit says, and literally my ego was like, why are you setting up a YouTube live at the last minute on a Friday night and just randomly posting it? Nobody's going to show up. What are you thinking? And you don't even want to change, like put on some other clothes, like, make your face up, whatever. And then my spirit's like, it doesn't matter. Someone will be called. If there's two of them, that's fine. Those are the two you're supposed to have a conversation with. Yoga clothes are comfy. Keep wearing your yoga clothes, and why would I want to wear a bunch of makeup? I'll wear what I had on earlier. That's fine. I'm not here to deliver Brooke the human. I'm here to deliver Brooke the embodied soul. And that's really what I want you to receive. And those of you that have been really supportive of me, I feel that that's what you resonate with. And I've heard that from so many people across the globe that I've worked with in this past year. So thank you for that. But long story short, yes, Rob, if it's deep shadow work, I highly, highly suggest doing it with a healer. If it's more benign stuff, then doing it with yourself is okay. But if there's any like deep trepidation or fear, that's when you ask for help. I hope that answers your question. Okay, now I get it. Colleen asked when the it was the purge. Okay, so as far as the purge, you said, how do you allow it to come out? What does it look like? That is a highly specific question for each individual. Let me find a general way to give you an example. Okay, So because of my background in psychology and because I own my history publicly as a polytrauma survivor, I'm hired quite often to work with complex PTSD. And so I have clients who, and there are a plethora of them. So if you're watching, I'm not speaking about any one of you in particular, but there are a plethora of them who have been doing the work brilliantly, may I add. I mean, every client that's come to me, mwah, you guys are extraordinary. That said, they've been brilliantly doing the work. They've been following the instructions. They have great sessions. And then afterwards, they purge it out. Now, what does that purge look like? It's very different person to person. Some people, the PTSD manifests in the physical, because remember what I said earlier. It starts in the etheric, the spiritual, then goes to the mental and emotional, and then goes to the physical. So someone who's been living with chronic PTSD, and I can speak to this to myself as well, it creates physical disease. So what led to my NDE was really a trauma-induced physical illness. And it was because I'd been holding on and suppressing all of this trauma for so many years, and I didn't have a safe container or outlet, and talk therapy just did not cut it for complex trauma. In my opinion, it still does not. On its own, I think it's wonderful in unison, but it needs to be done with other types of therapy. That said, the purge can be like the body actually detoxing, as if, let's say, you did a really thorough juice cleanse, or you worked out really, really hard, like the muscles are spasming. Quite often they'll describe flu-like symptoms or headaches, or not being able to get out of bed, just feeling really fatigued. Sometimes the symptoms that they do have, say if there's someone who grinds their teeth from the anxiety and the stress, those are exacerbated for a while, and like it'll really, really hurt. But that's a purge. It's what many people would call a healing crisis in holistic health. I prefer the term healing opportunity, because you have to remember all these things have been stored in for a really, really long time. And when they've been suppressed, actively suppressed for that long, then they're going to hurt when they come out, because they hurt so badly, you unconsciously were suppressing them. So releasing them isn't going to be pleasant. Okay. For other people, it's more, it comes via the third eye. They have visions of things, or they're flooded with memories of certain things, or they have past life remembrance, things of that nature. So it very much varies person to person, but how it works with vibrational medicine is that you're basically purging. If I were to do an entire shamanic quantum field ceremony on you, then I'm going to do my best to get through your entire chakra system, including the etheric chakras, as well as the earth star, which is one of the earth's etheric chakras. And the goal there is to really work to release as much as I can from the physical vessel as well as the etheric vessels. And so what can happen is that, all of these different places that are holding different information, whether it's the I am presence, the intuition, the ability to speak your truth, all three levels of the heart, being where we hold all of our grief, our pain, our love, our sorrow, all of it, then coming down into the power center of the solar plexus, or powerlessness, which is a big theme for many people when it's unbalanced, and then coming into the sacral, which is not only the fire of our body, but an actual digestion, but where we birth ideas, the home of creativity, and then coming down into the root, which for many trauma survivors is where they've really disembodied, because survival was a genuine fear. And so it wasn't just a fear, it was a reality-based fear. Am I going to survive this? So there's a lot of splitting that happens in the root chakra. And so all of that can purge at once. Now, I set a timer, and I'm very careful on individual vortexes, because I'll know which ones are most out of balance. So I will focus on the ones that need the most TLC, and then I will try to time the others with the aid of spirit to release more gently, and I'll use less intense light from myself and the angelics when I'm working to decrease that purge. But the reality is, spirit's going to assist you in purging however's for your highest and best. When these particular clients signed up with me, it was I don't know, 3 months before their actual session. I don't believe a single one of them, nor did I, look at a lunar calendar and say, oh, hey, look, it's a full moon and a solar eclipse. That's just how it divinely aligned. Well, because of that alignment, as I spoke about earlier, the veil was thinner. And because the veil is thinner and eclipses are all about release, suddenly we had this amplified energy. So I have to be very cognizant when I'm working with people as an experiencer, because my energy is so high and my teams come in with such a potent vibration that I work with people in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, on and on and on. I believe I've seen people in 32 countries since last July. They feel that energy. Anyone that's sensitive feels it, and they all have very different descriptions of it. But I have to be careful that I don't blast them, too intensely, because again, that will amplify the purge. So I go very gently in the session. Now, how the human body recalibrates that light, how it continues to align, there's a couple things that contribute to that. What do they do after? Do they go out and do they party? Because I always give strict instructions as to rest and drink a lot of water and follow your body. But some people feel really good and they've been depressed for a really long time and they haven't gone out, or the things are just reopening and they get a little carried away. And then suddenly they're putting a toxin into their system while they're purging. Well, that's going to make you feel sicker naturally. Other times they get a surge of energy and maybe they have fibromyalgia or Crohn's disease or an autoimmune disease of some sort where they don't actually get to move a lot. And now they have this surge of energy from all the light that I've infused with spirit, and they go and they do a whole bunch of stuff like right after the session, which I always encourage them not to. But, again, they just feel really good, so they want to go do it. The problem they're in is that amount of energy is flowing through them in the moment, but it's still calibrating. And then they use all this physical energy, and then all of a sudden they come to complete exhaustion, and they're just like in bed and need to relax and, feeling kind of sick and under the weather for a few days. So that's what I'm talking about of a purge. It can be completely spiritual. It can just be where, maybe you were taught a certain path as a child, and now suddenly you've had a session and all this information's cleared, and you're just getting downloads and visions and information from your higher self of your spiritual reality. That's a type of purge too. Generally, those are a little bit more pleasant, but say you're getting, divine remembrance of past lives, that can be very scary for many people. So it really ebbs and flows. The emotional and the mental are huge. A lot of people will report periods of just immense crying, like just release. That's actually wonderful. That's water medicine in shamanic terms. And that's all about releasing and allowing. And so much of that stagnant energy has been held in these vortexes. So letting it out is cathartic, it's healing. And so I am well known by my clients for sending very, very, very lengthy homework assignments. And the goal there is I'm giving you the resources to maximize your session. Now, some people are only going to choose to do one or two things. That's their choice. And those one or two things may be really helpful. But I give them at least, 10 to 12, if not more, exercises and links and, book resources, a whole sorts of things, minerals, whatever calls to me and spirit directs me to, I send to them. And the goal is that they spend the next 4 to 6 weeks really working with that before I see them again. And the minute I see their field in the purge that they've gone through, however intense or whatever type of purge, plus the homework they've done, it tells me everything. The minute I see them in the quantum field, I know exactly what they've done, what they haven't done, and where we need to focus, because there's nothing that's hidden once you're able to work with spirit and see beyond that veil. It's like you're getting a diagnostic imprint of all 5 subtle bodies. It's fascinating. There is never a dull moment. And I kid you not, when I close my medicine space between sessions and right before I reopen it, I am usually like a little child in the art of play, because I'm just so like just in love with the energy and what I do. As I said, I work with a lot of complex trauma, yet because of the nature of the work, working with spirit, getting direct information from spirit about these persons that I've never met, and I request very minimal information prior to sessions because I don't want my psychologist brain coming in and trying to art direct. It's just so beautiful how spirit always always knows what to do and how to help them for their highest and best, and has just really some like the most amazing people. So don't let the idea of a purge scare you. And this is again why I call it a healing opportunity, because in reality, a purge is a gift. A purge is an opportunity for you to release. My coming on here tonight was an opportunity for me to release this fear that it's very minute now compared to what it used to be like, but just releasing that fear that I won't be taken seriously, or I don't have anything original to contribute, or all those limiting beliefs that are coming from the mental body that are really outdated programming. I'm releasing them simply by doing this. And so that is a form of a gentle purge. It's a conscious purge, which is different, but it is a purge. So I hope that answers your question, Colleen. Ned, yes, love and light all of the time. Yes, it's a love, light, and shadow. Without the shadow, there you can't have love and light all the time, guys. Sorry, I got to keep it real. I don't want to. I am not going to be known for spiritual bypassing. If people want to call me out on stuff, they can call me out on it, because I can guarantee you, I'll call myself out on it too. So no problems there. But yes, love and light are beautiful concepts, but you are a human and you are embodied in a place right now which unfortunately isn't the highest vibration, and yet there's so much potential. What we're going through, we're really clearing. The earth is purging. I mean, talk about a purge. The earth has been purging for quite a while now and making great shifts. Humanity is purging, and it's not always beautiful. And for those of you that are familiar with the Ascended Masters, I've talked about this in some recent interviews. We are really in a period that the Vedic text described as Kali Yoga. And what that is Kali was really this fierce warrior. She wore skulls around her and was known, to be terrifying to many. And yet she destroyed to create. Like from her blood came creation. And so it's important to understand that while we go through these dark nights of the soul, while there's so much that's transpiring that may be scary on the surface, we are actually at this pivotal point in our collective evolution. And it's a blessed time to be alive. And all of you that, resonate with near-death experiences, are experiencers yourself, or multiple experiencers, or having spiritually transformative experience, on and on and on. To me, it doesn't matter. It all exists on a spectrum, and we're all in it together. So we're just in this really blessed, sacred time. But while we're doing that, and while we're talking about ascension, and while we're working on, being our highest and best, we also have to take care of the human, because the human is the vessel for us to communicate that through, and for us to shine that light through. So that vessel has to be clear. That vessel has to be doing its shadow work. That vessel has to know, hey, maybe I am not in a place to be of service right now. And I've actually had instances where I've had to do a lot of extractions the past year off of persons due to just everything that's going on in the collective. And I've extracted some things, and even though my medicine space is set up for it and I've cleared them, I still feel the energy for a while as it's relieving itself. And so I just, reach out to those clients and I say, hey, you know what? I just had a session where I really need to work on clearing myself, do some shadow work. I want to deliver my highest and best to you, give you your money's worth. So do you mind if we reschedule like a day or two out? And just by taking accountability for that, and them seeing that that is super integral to my practice and who I am, I've never had an issue with anyone ever getting upset with me, or, just being mean or anything of the nature. So there's so much that's so juicy and so, integral, that word just keeps coming out, about being authentic and owning your stuff. And, we don't need to put on this, this look and this idea that we are a love and light, because we're so much more than that. And Source made us in its image. And so we are allowed to have these black voids, these period of darkness. For me, my NDE took place in the cosmos. It was very space-like. And no, it was space. It's just space amplified. The colors and everything were turned way, 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 way up. But that said, even in this most divine, loving, beautiful place, there was blackness. There were black holes. There were voids. There were places of darkness, but they weren't scary. They weren't terrifying. The light shone. And so you still felt anchored. You still felt connected to the one. And that's the important part is, when we open the 4 directions in the shamanic traditions, we call on Mother Sister Jaguar. And the reason we call on her particular type of medicine is she's fearless. She transverses into the shadows, able to see in darkness. And that allows her to go through the shadows fearlessly and alchemize them to light. So you're so welcome, Colleen. So Colleen also asked, do you believe we can send healing vibes across the airwaves even though we aren't retained? Aren't trained? Oh, of course. I don't ever encourage anyone that's not attuned to various levels of energy medicine to go out and just randomly practice on people. Because again, you need to make sure your field is clear before you're serving as a vessel to others. But being able to send healing vibrations, healing intentions, healing prayer, that's all about alignment. So this is where, your intention, your alignment, and your vibration, once they're unified, oh yes, Spirit loves and our higher selves love when we are sending out love, because at our very core, we are love. Even in those shadow spaces, we are love. There's no separation. And I think that's part of what I struggle with the love and light, is that the shadow gets kind of this bad rap and it's, we're all love and light, da da da. No, there's no duality there. In this human place that we currently are, and in the level of consciousness that we currently are, and yes, it is shifting, there we have duality, but within us, everything kind of works together. It's all alchemical, and we need both of it. So you're simply loving someone or caring for someone or praying for someone that's sick, and doing that with loving intention and sending it out with a vibration that's aligned simply with the intention of healing, and really believing and knowing that you're sending that energy out. Absolutely. I have a lot of family and friends that aren't, intuitives, or they wouldn't call themselves that. And yet I'll literally, because I am so sensitive to energy, like when they're thinking of me or praying for me, I'll call or text them because I feel their energies in my field. It's not that they're poking or prodding. It's that they're, sending some sort of intention, but because I am so hypersensitive, I'm able to feel it. And everybody's able to feel the presence of love. We're all hungry for it. We all come in, like the first thing we want as infants is to really be held and to know that we're safe. And so many persons don't get that to varying degrees throughout their early childhood. And so just sending pure love from your heart, anytime, anywhere, any place, is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I invite you all, if you're interested in just accelerating that practice, we do global unity meditations on Sundays at 5 a.m., 8 a.m., and 11 a.m. PST. And they're facilitated from Sedona, Arizona, but it's just dropping in as a group. You don't have to get online or do anything. You're just dropping in for 30 minutes wherever you are and really allowing yourself to connect with everyone else that's meditating. And I tell you, if you do this practice weekly with us, it's amazing the things that are going to come through, because I don't typically tell people they're in Sedona because it's so much fun for them to describe there were red rocks and they talk about the vortexes and stuff, but I told you guys, so now you know. But that said, it's just fascinating what as a quantum as a quantum field of light bodies connected through all time and space to the divine, what we are able to anchor in when we put our energies together. And you do not need any formal training to do that. We're, in fact, in my opinion, we're all here to do just that. So thank you for your question, Colleen. Okay, guys. Oh, we've been chatting away. I didn't realize the time. So, are there any other burning questions or inquiries? Be in my water, man. Any last questions you guys would like to ask? Let's see. For those of you who are just meeting me today and weren't here maybe earlier, I'll do a very quick recap. Tomorrow I'll be speaking at IANS in Williamsburg, Virginia. There's a link, an email link. Hopefully you can still get the Zoom. It doesn't start till noon PST, 9 a.m. Noon EST. 9 my time. And so if you want, you can check the notes, and there's a email to get the Zoom link. And this week I'll be doing World Unity Week. That is a free event, the NDE panel, which will also have Kimberly Clark, who I know many of you are familiar from Seattle IANS. We will be doing that together on Friday the 25th, 1:30 to 3 p.m. EST. I'm telling you, man, I work in all different time zones. This is the hardest part of my job, is keeping track of what time zone I'm working in. And then let's see, after that, in July 10th, I will be speaking for Seattle IANS, and I'm very excited because they gave me the free reign to do my own topic and not talk solely about my NDE. So that's going to be a surprise for you guys. But if you are participating on ISGO, I don't know how they actually say it. But if you participate on that website, that'll be coming up in the July events, and that's July 10th, and I believe that's 1:30 to 3 p.m. PST. That one's actually PST because Seattle. And I just recorded a chat for the Whole Woman Conference, which is August 13th to 15th. It's a holistic and medically oriented conference, and so that was real fun. So you can catch that if you'd like. And then, of course, we have the 40th anniversary of IANS, which is coming up in September, and I am honored to be speaking as a panelist with PMH Atwater and Jeffrey O'Driscoll and Jeff Olson and Spencer Olson. And we are going to be talking on how the wisdom of NDEs nourish our children. And as a mom myself, I'm very excited about that, particularly as a mom of two intuitives. And then I will also be moderating the After Effects and Integration panel with a lovely group of people. So if you choose to opt into the IANS conference, it'd be great to see you there. And that's just the events for the next couple of weeks and months. There are plenty more coming up. I'm also recording about, I think, 6 new interviews this summer. So I hope you'll check them out. Let me see if you have any more questions. Ned's asking where my saw lamps are. You're used to seeing me in my medicine space. I can't record in there because you guys will notice I'm kind of far back from the camera. If I get close to the camera or any technology, everything crashes. And in my room where I do my medicine, I have so many EMF protectors and so many different types of crystals and things to counter the Wi-Fi and the 5G that I drop any like major signals. I can use my phone in there, but that's about it. And it doesn't get the greatest reception. So that's why I'm out here doing this and sitting far back from the screen and the lights, because the last interview I did, I was affecting the lights and they were going in and out the entire interview. So any after effect that Ned and I were discussing the other day on the group, which is just how some of us with very high vibrations tend to break technology. Some of the lighting that's on right now, when I first got it, like as soon as I opened the box and tried to play with it and turn it on, I shorted out the ring lights, and I still don't have the camera operating correctly because it's set up to be like very focused and 4K and right on your face. But if I get that close to it, all sorts of wonky stuff happens. So that's the kind of stuff I'm trying to figure out technically before I do my weekly lives. And some of you have witnessed when I work with Sylvia. I don't know why it's always when I'm on a guest on Sylvia's show, but I believe in like October and January, I came on as a guest and I crashed all the technology, and we had to keep starting over again and again and again. So when you see a video with me that doesn't crash, like it, because that was spirit saying, hey, we can do this one. And the fact that we haven't had any technical interruptions thus far is a great blessing, especially as this was totally on the fly. So thank you guys. Oh, you're so welcome, Colleen. Thank you for coming on. Oh, Peter, you're here. Thank you for the encouragement on the speaking gig. So, yes, this was fun, guys. Like, I'm glad I listened to Spirit. So I just went with I always listen to them, but I'm stubborn. And my human likes to put up a little fuss. And I was like, I don't want to go on tonight. I'm going to be on tomorrow morning. And what am I going to talk about tonight? So it's like, you know what? If they bring questions, I have answers. And I trust that. So remember, Spirit called us all in for collective protection, which I do feel that we've brought a lot just through our conversation, and that just by being together, remember, this is live and we were here together live, but this is going out through all time and space and will connect with other persons, and your energies are very much a part of that. So thank you for being here now and offering yourself, your questions, your inquiries, and your experiences. I deeply appreciate and respect that. And what are we anchoring and calling in together today? And the beautiful friendship card. And for those of you that I don't know prior to today, thank you so much for showing up. And I do consider you a beloved and welcome your presence. I'm honored to be in the group with you. I'd love to see you at some of the engagements if they call to you. And I'm just sublimely grateful. So thank you guys for helping me push through some of my fear, for allowing me to just speak from the heart and just be my raw, unfiltered self. So much love to you all. Wishing you a most blessed evening or morning or afternoon if you're seeing this through all time and space at a later time. But I'm really just honored to be coming into a place where I feel confident enough to begin really sharing my journey and my experience and my wisdom and integrating that with the many paths I have walked in this incarnation. So many blessings to you for being here to receive. And I just wish you a beautiful evening. Sweet dreams to you all. And good morning to those of you who might be singing in another country. Love, love, love. All good stuff. Good night, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye.